Hey guys, Stanley here from Elion Technologies. Firstly, I'd like to thank you for the overwhelming response towards Teamspace. You guys are really receiving it very well. Thanks for that, really appreciate it, and hope to keep you guys happy storing and happy sharing. Sync, share, smile. Today I'd like to give you a bit more of an administrative overview of Teamspace. So let's start at the login screen. Firstly, you see I'm in Chrome. It is browser independent. Secondly, all the traffic that goes over the wires is encrypted 2048. Then the login can be governed by the Teamspace Authentication System or by your Active Directory. So you can have single sign-on into Teamspace. So I'm going to log in as my organizational administrator. And by default I'm taken to the home screen. Now this, for administrators, is really the place where everything happens. On the left here we have a couple of basic features, more on the user side. But on your tree here on the right, on your decision tree on the right, this is where all the juicy administrative stuff happens. I'm going to start here under the organizational role. As admin for my organization, I'm able to add users and allocate roles to those users. You will see here organizational staff I can add using email notification or without email notification. All users under the administrator will be username at Elion or at whatever name is, APSA or NetBank or whatever. And it's then in this page that one decides which authentication system will be used. Just below that we have the default storage quota for users. Administrators will govern how much storage space the users per user has. If you have any roles defined, you will then at this point be able to allocate that to the checked accounts above. Similarly, if you'd like to change the assigned authentication system, you can do that here. A little lower we have a managing of mobile devices, whether you'd like to enable or block any of those devices per user. So some users may have them blocked and others not. And then right at the bottom you can import your users either from CSV or XLS and so forth. Under roles are almost like groups. You can see I have the default two roles of administrator and member. I've added these three for demonstration purposes only. And these are really grouping users together by function or by group. And as you'll see later, we can allocate permissions based on user and role and organization. So this is really where it comes into play when we're allocating permissions. Okay, next on the list is Authentication Systems. This is really to do with Active Directory. You would essentially set this up on your Active Directory servers, where you would key in the necessary information, generate the key, and download the proxy behind your firewall. You'd essentially be authenticating or providing proxy behind your firewall to which Teamspace will communicate. Shared org folders. There's a couple of tabs on this page. Firstly, there's the permission page. Remember I said folders are or permissions are folder based, and then role, user, and organization. So as I don't have any other users allocated here or created here, you don't see them. But if I had Ted and John and Sally and Sam, you would see them in this list as well. And then you can change the set permissions to either no access to a folder, read and download, re-download, and write upload. What's quite handy as well is, depending on what sort of permission structure you'd like to manage, you can change the default. So default, when any folder is created, it will inherit the default permissions, and that is set right there. File box, I'll touch on that in a separate video. Notifications is really just a very simple notification rule extension where you can dictate files with certain text in the file name or in the description or in the extension, and which folders they come in and how you'd like to be notified and to who you'd like to send that notification. Fairly simplistic. Who can manage? This is to do with the shared organization folders. You will know from some of the previous videos that you can convert any folder in any of the 40+ public and private cloud storage environments. You can convert that to an organizational folder. Well, here you will decide or allocate which member or person, which role or person can create or delete those organizational folders. Options, there's a fair bit of juice on this tab. Let's start at the top. There's quite a bit of governance on the whole application, the look and feel, and what it will and won't allow. So if we start right at the top, we start with the user governance options, enabling business groups. What this does is it allows your users to create groups made up of internal and external users. Make public files. Within Teamspace, you have the facility of making any file within any of your silos public, which means it will appear in a public environment where there is no authentication required. Having said that, you can make your public files password protected. Org members can change default storage provider. What this means is when you first start up an organization within Teamspace, because remember it is a multi-tenant environment, I can set up in the configuration of that organization how many storage providers that organization may have, and at this level I can say whether the normal members of that organization may change the default provider. Yes, they may add their own private storage providers, but what we're saying here is may they change the default or not. That is generally set to no. Enabling creation of direct links, that's fairly self-explanatory. Messaging we'll touch on a little later, and cloud migration is a really handy tool when you're bringing a mass of documents in from other clouds, or you'd like to take a mass of documents out to other clouds. Download from the web, I'll touch on another video. And here is what I was referring to earlier, where org members can add their own private clouds, and if that's set to yes, then they will be able to add, and here you can set the max that they're allowed to add their private clouds to the system. A key thing to note here, their private clouds that they add to Teamspace does not go towards the used storage usage in the public environment. Obviously, if you're running this on-premise, in an on-premise installation, then storage quotas have no consequence. Provide types to add as private clouds. This is the list of the various private clouds, or shall I say the public clouds that you could add, or that you're allowing this organization to select. Backup in Skype history, that's fairly self-explanatory. This is the next two options have got to do with the file box environment, which I'll touch on at another stage. And then the events log is quite important. Here the administrator will decide which of these events he or she would like to record in the audit trail, in the log. So any of those you can select or unselect, and then the logging will record any of those actions. File chunking is fairly handy if you're dealing with public storage clouds that only allow file sizes up to a certain limit. Teamspace will then recognize that and then chop the file up into chunks that are smaller than that, and therefore allowing you to store bigger files within a Dropbox or an Alfresco and so forth. So if you're uploading a DVD ISO and it's 4 gigabytes, not many cloud storage providers will allow you to do that. You enable file chunking, you chop it up into 1 gigabytes, and then it'll go in as 4 separate bits, but Teamspace will still keep control of the full and final version. SSL mode is really just saying, are you enforcing SSL across users? And in this case, I'm saying yes. This is quite handy, but very, very specific. If you'd like to restrict access to Teamspace from certain IPs, this is obviously much more applicable if you are running this on premise. This speaks for itself. Encryption. Remember, we've always said that Teamspace encrypts your files independently of whether the underlying storage environment allows it or not. This is true, and this is where you will set the passphrase or the blanket encryption. So by default, Teamspace will not encrypt unless the user explicitly asks that that file be encrypted. So the user can, at the user level, request the file to be encrypted, or at the administrative level, the administrator can choose to encrypt all files and obviously store the passphrase here. Key thing here is, if you ever do, you're never locked into Teamspace. As long as you keep the passphrase, you can decrypt those files using any tool available. Versioning speaks for itself, and it's pretty good to keep the versioning on so that you have the track of your history. Your interface, how your interface looks, which options are available to your users. In the right-click menu with which editing and viewing options are available. You'll note Zoho Office is there. That is a really, really good integration. Full Office editing in a web browser for any of the Office documents. Note, however, that does require an additional subscription. There are various smart folders, which I'll talk about in another video, which you can hide or show to your members. Notifications, fairly self-explanatory, and then authentication we've touched on. You can obviously brand your environment, even if you're running in the public or the on-premise version. You can brand your pages with your logos, and then even have your own templates, your own email templates emailed about. Statistics is fairly self-explanatory. It's really just bandwidth usage per user. So if I had more users here, I would see how much bandwidth they've been using in the various months. Logs, this is those various file actions that we selected previously. Which file, which folder, what date, which user, and what IP. So completely HIPAA compliant. Members, just really just a list of any members within your environment, and if you were more members here, you would be able to secure message those users directly within the Teamspace environment. Dashboard is another one of the bigger environments where users can check their data, change their passwords, delete accounts, see what packages they've subscribed to, manage the providers that they are currently using, manage which of the providers their members are subscribing to, manage how the metadata is updated, and how that synchronization happens, how often it gets refreshed, how to manage trash, the Yahoo player, a little bit more about the versioning and how to show the versioning, and then again a little bit more about notifications. Cloud Sync tasks, it's this is really just many of the tasks are too big to run in the foreground, and it gets run in the background, and this is really just a place to see have they completed, have they successfully completed, and delete, restart, or report on that. Public files is really just a filter to show you which of your files have been pushed to the public domain, and so it gives you an opportunity to manage it there. Messages is just a secure messaging environment. Okay, account status is typical bandwidth and storage used per provider, cloud information, how to, again, a little bit more about how to sync and how to refresh the metadata. So that pretty much covers that part of things. In the file manager, let's see if there's anything particularly of administrative interest. We have, already the cloud file tree here, And further down we have what's known as smart folders that basically filter and show you the information that's relevant to them. The groups is fairly handy. This is the only place that external people will be able to access information that has been shared with them. So that's key to know. Contacts are quite handy to import your contacts here. At the moment there is no integration into Exchange or AD here, but once a user is in here, it is easy to route information to them directly from Teamspace. Well, I think that gives you a good overview of the administrative capabilities of Teamspace, which is quite advanced. Please keep in mind this environment is available whether you're consuming the publicly provided Teamspace service from our servers in Johannesburg, and obviously if you are installing this on-premise, you obviously also have the full functionality available to you. I hope this has been helpful. Please don't hesitate to contact me if you have any questions at stanley@teamspace.co. Thanks for watching.